Welcome to Health 2660. Here we don't just talk about health, we tell the stories that heal. Now please listen to the story. I used to think, this is it, that I would live the rest of my life with diabetes. Pills lined up in the morning, those tiny painful pricks on my fingertips, and my son's worried eyes every time he looked at my test results. I'm 64. My husband passed away 6 years ago from a stroke. Since then, it's just been me, in this little house with a garden in the back. Some mornings, I would sit by the window and quietly wonder to myself, is this all I have left? Pills, oatmeal, and fear. One morning while making my usual black coffee, no sugar of course, I checked my blood sugar, 187 milligrams per deciliter. I had been so careful with my food. I took my medication faithfully. But still, that number stared back at me like a silent accusation. When I visited my doctor later that week, he suggested increasing my medication. I nodded politely, but inside I felt this familiar wave of dread. You see, I had watched my husband walk this path. It started with a few pills. Then came the insulin. Then the complications, and then he was gone. The memory was a cold knot in my stomach, a constant reminder of what could be. That afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store. I wasn't even really hungry, just restless. As I stood in the tea aisle, trying to decide between chamomile and something minty, a voice behind me gently asked, "Have you ever tried olive leaf tea? I drink it every day." I turned around. A woman about my age stood there, silver hair tied, neatly, eyes bright, holding a small, unassuming box of tea. She had a kindness about her, a genuine warmth that radiated outwards. She told me her husband also had type 2 diabetes, but things had improved dramatically when they started using herbs, olive leaf peppermint, and something called holy basil. She spoke with such conviction, not like she was trying to sell me something, but like she was sharing a secret, a life raft she'd found and wanted to share. I don't know why I believed her. Maybe it was the calm in her voice, or maybe I just wanted something to believe in. I felt so utterly hopeless, trapped in this cycle of medication and worry. Maybe there was another way. That night, I went home and looked them up: olive leaf, peppermint, holy basil. I'd heard of them before, of course, seen them in health food stores, maybe even brewed a peppermint tea for a tummy ache once. But I had never really looked into them, never considered them as anything more than, well, tea. The next morning, I made my first cup of olive leaf tea. The instructions on the box were simple enough. It was a little bitter, not unpleasant, but definitely earthy. Somehow, though, it was comforting. Like I was doing something, taking action, even if it was just brewing a cup of tea. At lunch, I added fresh peppermint leaves to my water. I'd bought a small plant from the grocery store, a tiny burst of green, on my kitchen windowsill. The water felt clean, fresh, alive. It was a subtle change, but it felt hopeful. In the evening, I sipped warm, holy basil tea before bed. Its soft, earthy aroma gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. It was like wrapping myself in a warm blanket, a gentle reassurance that things could be okay. I also began to eat more simply. Less sugar, less white rice, more greens, more seeds. I found myself drawn to the vibrant colors of fresh vegetables, the satisfying crunch of nuts and seeds. It wasn't about deprivation, but about nourishing my body with real, whole foods. And each morning, I took a slow walk around my little backyard, just 10 minutes to start. The sun on my face, the birds singing the scent of the roses my husband had planted. It was a gentle habit, a quiet moment of connection with the natural world. In the first week, I slept deeper. No more waking up sweating or needing to pee at 2 a.m. I woke up feeling rested. For the first time in months, I woke up feeling like I actually had energy. By the second week, I noticed my pants were looser around the waist. Not drastically, but enough to notice. Enough to feel a little spring in my step. After a month, my morning blood sugar dropped to 116 milligrams per deciliter. I stared at the number, blinking, unsure if it was real. I checked it again. And again. It was real. It was lower than it had been in years. A wave of disbelief washed over me, followed by a cautious surge of hope. 2 months later, my doctor raised an eyebrow and said, "Your cholesterol is down. Your blood sugar's stable. What have you been doing, Ms. Linda?" He looked genuinely surprised, even a little impressed. I smiled and said I started drinking tea, and I started believing I could still be healthy. It was the truth, plain and simple. It wasn't just the tea, of course, but it was the catalyst. It was the spark that had ignited a flame of hope and self-care within me. It wasn't just my body that changed. Something softer shifted inside me. I began calling my son more often. We talked about his work, his kids, his life. I listened more, offered advice, less. I felt closer to him than I had in years. I let my granddaughter teach me how to use her old smartphone. At first, I was frustrated, overwhelmed by all the buttons and apps. But she was patient, smiling at my confusion and cheering every little victory. We started texting each other silly memes, sharing photos of our day. It opened up a whole new world of connection. I stopped making coffee in the morning. Instead, I boiled water and steeped olive leaf tea. Every sip was like a whisper. I'm still here. I'm alive. And I'm taking care of myself. It was a gentle practice of self-love, a quiet reminder that I was worth the effort. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like coming home to myself, to my body, to my life. I had spent so long feeling lost and adrift, but now I felt grounded, rooted, connected. At first I asked myself, how can a simple leaf do anything for someone like me? I was skeptical. Cynical even. I'd tried so many things over the years, so many diets and exercise programs, all promising miracles, but delivering only disappointment. How could a few leaves possibly make a difference? But the more I learned, the more I understood. These weren't just leaves. They were nature's quiet medicine, backed by real science. They weren't a magic cure, but they were powerful allies in my journey back to health. Olive leaf, I discovered, contains a powerful compound called oleuropein. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but it's a powerhouse when it comes to blood sugar regulation. It helps regulate blood sugar by improving insulin sensitivity, making it easier for my body to use the insulin it produces. It also lowers LDL, bad cholesterol, and raises HDL, good cholesterol, keeping arteries clean, and reducing the risk of heart disease, something that was always on my mind after my husband's stroke. And perhaps, most surprisingly, it kickstarts the breakdown of deep belly and liver fat, the kind that hides silently and harms us over time, contributing to insulin resistance and inflammation. Peppermint, the fresh, cool leaf we often overlook, is a metabolic ally. I always thought of it as just a refreshing flavor, but it turns out it's so much more. It stimulates digestion, helping my body process and extract the nutrients it needs. It also boosts my metabolism, even when I'm resting. It might not be a huge boost, but every little bit helps. And it eases bloating and releases trapped water, making my belly feel lighter and more comfortable. That feeling of lightness alone was a welcome change. Holy basil, or Tulsi, as they call it in India, is a sacred healer. I learned that it's been used for centuries in Ayurvedic medicine to promote health and well-being. It fights inflammation and balances the immune system, helping my body defend itself against illness. Most importantly, it regulates cortisol, the stress hormone. And when cortisol is out of control, it causes belly fat sugar cravings and blood sugar spikes. It's like a vicious cycle. Stress leads to unhealthy habits, which in turn leads to more stress. Holy basil helps to break that cycle, calming the mind and body and promoting a sense of inner peace. When these 3 leaves came together, one helping me regulate blood sugar, one boosting my metabolism, and one calming the stress that had been locking fat and sugar inside my body, it created something powerful, a kind of healing synergy where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. They didn't just manage symptoms, they started to address the deeper roots of my diabetes. I don't know where you are on your health journey. Maybe you're newly diagnosed with diabetes, feeling overwhelmed and scared. Maybe you've been living with it for years, feeling frustrated and defeated. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're confused. Maybe you've tried everything, the diets, the pills, the gym memberships, and nothing has really helped. But you know what? My journey didn't begin with anything big. It didn't begin with a drastic diet or a grueling exercise program. It began with a single cup of tea. A small choice repeated each day became a reminder to myself that I deserve to be well. These leaves weren't magic, but they were powerful. I'm not saying they were a miracle, and I'm not here to promise they'll cure diabetes overnight. But I can say this from my own experience, they sent a signal to my body, a gentle, quiet message that healing was possible. When you choose something gentle, natural, and healing, it's like whispering to your cells, I still have hope. And the body listens. Your body is incredibly resilient, capable of healing and regeneration in ways we are only beginning to understand. No matter how long you've been tired, inflamed, or afraid, your body is always ready to heal. When you're ready to love it again, it's about shifting your mindset, about believing that you are capable of change, about taking small, consistent steps towards a healthier, happier you. Now every morning I rise early. I step into my garden, pick a few fresh peppermint leaves. I boil water. I breathe. I listen to the birds sing. I feel the sun on my face. I no longer live in fear. I am Linda. I'm 64 years old, and I am truly living. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I have energy, I have hope, and I have a renewed sense of purpose. If I could do it, you can too. Just start with a cup of tea, a single leaf, a single choice. You don't need to change everything in one day. You just need to begin. But what about the woman in the grocery store? The one with the silver hair and bright eyes who first introduced me to the power of these leaves? I never saw her again. Was she an angel, a figment of my imagination, or simply a kind stranger who unknowingly changed the course of my life? I may never know the answer, but I often wonder and hope that maybe, just maybe, I can be that spark of hope for someone else. And that brings me to something I have been working on for a little while now. Health 2660. Thanks you for listening. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, be kind to yourself.